This video is going to be a shit show.
I know. We're going to love it.
Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to another Mental Health Mondays video. I am MK, your friendly neighborhood mental health therapist. This is my friend Zach.
Hello.
Zach and I have been friends 10, 12 years since
we were children.
Since we were young. And I have only just found out in the past 2 years that Zach deals with depression.
Me too.
So I thought it'd be really interesting to bring Zach in so he can kind of tell you a story and we can talk about how he realized he had depression and what he's doing to deal with it. So Zach, how old were you when you first realized that you were depressed?
Probably 25.
25?
25, yeah. I had a couple of more pronounced episodes when I was younger, but I never realized it was something that I was actively living with more than like 1 or 2 occasions until I was in my mid-20s.
So what do you think was the first time that you were starting to experience it? How old were you?
The earliest I would probably go back and call it depression would be sometime during middle school, probably like 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you didn't realize what it was until about 25.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea that if you weren't just constantly miserable all the time, that it counted, or that it was worth seeking help over.
Oh, so you were under the impression that to be depressed, you had to be upset all of the time or crying all of the time.
Yeah, I guess one way to put it is just that I knew people whose cases were different than mine, and I just sort of never thought that what I was experiencing could be the same as that or could be treated in a similar way. I just sort of internalized this very individualistic self-help sort of go-getter mentality from a young age, and I think I must have been afraid or just I didn't know what to do about it, but I didn't know that it was depression until.
Did you feel like because you weren't upset every day or maybe necessarily want to hurt yourself in some way that you felt like you didn't need to get help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always felt like, well, when the time comes, if it comes again, that I feel like that, then I'll get help. And then, of course, when that happens, you're in no state to do anything about it. So I just sort of kept prolonging it. But also I procrastinate on everything in my entire life. So that's, that's how my life is just generally gone.
Okay, that's why it's taken so long for you to come visit.
Yeah, perhaps.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what was going on when you were 25 to make you realize that this is depression and I need help?
Sure. Well, for starters, I was in a very competitive and isolating work environment. I was in a graduate program that really didn't put me in a place where people knew how to talk about mental health, or if they did or they had their own struggles, they really kept it to themselves and they were encouraged to at least appear to be completely competent and professional on the surface. And so I just had no idea that things could be so bad, and I thought I was just this one sort of weird person who was the exception to the rule. Did
you feel like everyone else around me can handle this? Why can't I handle this? And so made you kind of embarrassed to tell anyone about it or to reach out about it?
Absolutely. I always felt like, well, I could handle it if I really wanted to, and I must not. If I'm not doing something about it, then it must be because I don't really care enough, or I'm not motivated enough. The point when I realized I needed help was when it just started happening regularly, and I started to piece together a long enough history where I can see this is not just, you're in a weird place in your life, or you're, going through this one difficult thing. It's something that happens consistently. One
of the reasons I wanted to have you specifically on the show was because, like you said, you were depressed since high school, but you didn't really realize it till you were 25. I feel like there were some signs leading up to it that maybe if you had paid more attention to them or had known that this is a precursor to depression, that would have caused you to realize it earlier.
Yeah, I think for most of my life I was always just kind of a quiet person, but I really, during these times, would withdraw and keep to myself and neglect my friendships and relationships. I really had a hard time keeping a functional sleep schedule.
So sleep hygiene,
Mhm.
feeling kind of maybe alienated and
Yeah.
feeling. I don't know if you'll remember this, but a couple of years ago, you once said to me, and it really stuck with me, that our group of friends, and we have a great group of friends that still are very much in touch. I mean, all of the guys that we were friends with were bridesmen in my wedding. There's some great pictures. But you once said to me that our group of friends have nothing really in common, and that we all got together but because we were all weird in some way. So I mean, like, did you feel like that's how you gravitated to this group of friends, that everyone else you just felt like you didn't fit in with, and there was something different about you?
Yeah. Turns out we all sort of had our own depression or our own issues that were going on at the time.
That brings me to another point. So we have a very good group of friends, all very liberal, very understanding. I mean, obviously, at the time when we were in high school, you didn't realize I was going to grow up to be a therapist. But why did you not feel comfortable coming to any of us about what you were going through?
Because I felt like if it was a real problem, then I would want to go to someone much more professional. And if it wasn't really that much of a problem, it wasn't worth sharing.
What helps you cope now?
Journaling a lot. I have made a point to try to write every morning when I wake up, even if it's just 5 minutes, just the act of doing it. It's helped me to get to know myself a little bit more, but it's also helped me map a timeline of my life where you can sort of see the ups and downs a little bit more clearly. And when things are really difficult and times are really bad, it's very important to remind yourself that things aren't always like that. And if you journal through the good times, it's helpful because you can see that you weren't always as miserable and it's always, wasn't always as difficult. I think what was harder than writing was writing something meaningful. I really only opened up emotionally to my journal, which was something nobody else read, when I was having problems dating or when something very serious happened. Otherwise, it's really kind of self-indulgent drivel, which I still love reading because...
So do you feel like there's anything else that helps you besides journaling now, like keeping a consistent sleep schedule? Because you had cited that as something that was one of the warning signs of going through depression when you were younger.
Definitely drinking less was huge. I worked at a lot of bars in between schools and started slipping into drinking as a way to quiet myself down and to just sort of push a lot of these problems under the rug. And when I stopped drinking, it was immediately very painful because all of these things sort of bubble back up to the surface, but it really just being patient and allowing yourself to feel things and have that experience of letting go of bad habits has been really good. For me, it's been a process of just letting go of bad habits. I do want to also say that listening to music was a big part of my story. I read somewhere a while back that people who are sort of quietly depressed or dealing with depression on their own often turn to music to externalize or offload a lot of their struggles. And I definitely have just catalogs of albums that I've, assigned to different parts of my life or different feelings or different issues. And that's helped me sort of catalog my life in a similar way as journaling has, actually.
Did your depression ever get so bad that you were thinking of hurting yourself in some way?
Yeah, multiple times. The first time that happened was during high school. It was when I was in a very competitive environment getting into colleges. I was under a lot of pressure from my parents and from teachers and from people around me to be somebody that I didn't feel comfortable becoming yet, or to I don't know, very, very quickly grow up in that.
What are you doing right now to help treat the depression? Are you seeing a professional?
I am seeing a therapist. I am
not me. I want to point that out.
Yeah.
That would be a huge violation if I was a therapist.
No, I'm seeing a therapist. I am actually on antidepressants, which has helped. I think I didn't really understand what that was going to be like when I first went on antidepressants. And my parents definitely don't understand. They think it's sort of like just sort of boost back up to normalcy. And
how are your parents handling all of this?
They're doing their best. They don't know what it is.
Do you find
But
that they just want to fix it any way
Yes.
that they can? And sometimes when you're depressed, you just need someone to just be there and
Yeah.
help you while you experience it.
Yeah, totally. And I was explaining this to my mom the other night, actually. Explaining to her, I don't need you to have a solution because there probably isn't one. It's probably just something I'm going through right now, and I'll come out the other end of it and be fine. And she kept going back to, well, if I can't fix it for you, then I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix it. And it's sort of that instinct of you just want the problem to go away.
So since a lot of my patients are adolescents, which I mentioned in the last video, I deal with a lot of family involvement as well. And a lot of times parents, because it's their role to protect you, when they don't know how to protect you in a certain situation like mental health, they get very frustrated, they get afraid, and that sometimes comes out as anger and things like that. So have you had a lot of difficult discussions with your parents about this?
Yeah. The scary thing is that I work very hard to not blame anyone or to be very clear that it's nobody's fault or that's I don't have any hard feelings towards my parents, and just because there are things from when I was younger that they were also there for doesn't necessarily mean that I am harboring active resentment towards them, which they really don't know how to hear my perspective or my experience without feeling like they somehow failed me or that they should have done something better.
So they take on a lot of guilt in relation to what you're going through.
Yeah, and they were always kind of the perfectionist type. So if they did a 99% great job of parenting me, and that little 1% mixed in with my family history and my, chemical makeup and all of these different variables in life, that little 1% that they could have done better, they're going to not sleep forever. My parents often expect me to eventually be completely cured, which is really frustrating, especially because even if you could be 100% cured, to be thinking about that when you're in the midst of an episode or a depressive cycle, then it's almost unfathomable. So even if that was a real aspiration, that's not a good time to talk about it,
And it's frustrating for a lot of families and a lot of people that are going through it when they realize that depression sort of goes into remission, but it's difficult to ever say that you're cured because there's always something that could happen to trigger a depressive episode again. Well, Zach's mom, if you watch this video, I know that you're doing everything that you can. And I miss you, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything that you would like to tell people out there that are maybe struggling with identifying depression or just going through it and don't really have anyone to talk to about it?
Yeah. If you're not sure, there's absolutely no harm in reaching out. And it's probably better to be a little bit on the cautious side and think, maybe I might be depressed and then overreact to it than it would be to let it go unnoticed. You do not have to suffer through it alone. It's not fun to suffer through it alone. It really helps if you have people around.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks
sharing
so much
your
for having
story.
me on.
So Zach is probably going to become, an intermittent guest on this show because because as we were talking about what to do in this video, he came up with like 6 other videos to do. And I always want excuses for him to come visit. So you'll definitely be seeing him again. But thank you so much for tuning in. I know this was a little bit different than the first video. I kind of talked less and wanted someone actually actively going through depression to give his side of things, and hopefully you were connecting with parts of his story. So we are going to have a new Mental Health Monday video with a new topic every Monday. Please like, subscribe, comment, tell us your story. We're actually really want to know it. We're waiting for. What are you doing? Okay, and please, please, please share this video. So every time you share, someone that might be going through something that they are not talking about might be able to find comfort from these videos. So thank you, and I will see you without Zach next Monday.
Farewell.